game engine reflection on what we did for the extraction this week. Well, the prototype week and the first playable. So the way that we organize this is we all have our own folders. And the artists have like assets and textures and the models, and they organize everything like that. And the coders have their own scripts folders. It's been working for us so far, and if we change anything else, we'll tell the other person like what we changed in their scripts, so that way it's more organized. We have a main scene with all the managers structured in here. Stuff like the UI manager is kind of long for the inspector. I did the UI manager. So I came up with this system where it's like I have all of our states here. It might not be like, it's probably up for a refactor eventually. But this is just what we could get in that's working. So every state has like a screen object prefab, and this is just mapping the states to the UI states so that they can show at the same time. I can go into this folder actually. Anyway, these are like just the folder tree in the Explorer. So most of my work that I did for the first 4 weeks was UI. I worked a lot in the engine with UI. Yeah, getting all of the screens showing up properly, getting all of the prefabs for all the screens, having the new buttons, and making sure that when they're actually active in the scene they're showing, but in the prefab they could kind of get messed up a bit. Yeah, adding new UI whenever we needed it, adding like scripts and assigning stuff. That was mostly what I did. And that ties like right into the event system, so like the state system and like UI states. So I did this for these states. I made them scriptable objects. I was kind of trying to experiment with like, oh, I really like the modularity of one script per state sort of thing. So I wanted to have like each state scriptable object has their own assigned state, and then in the game state machine they would all have their assigned like scriptable object, I guess, and that would be their ID. Just a simple like enter exit update sort of thing. Other things that I did in the engine, it's like so for the input system, I didn't make it, but I added to it, I guess. We have keyboard and gamepad controls so far. We're planning this to be like a Windows release, I guess. We're going to have assigned tasks for like Steam page research and all that stuff. And I'll make sure that the build is like working for Windows and Steam specifically, so it'll be like any other build that we've done so far, like for Windows. But just if it has any quirks along the way, we'll try to figure it out. So far we've had some problems with like getting builds consistently the same as what we see in the editor, so we'll have to kind of start troubleshooting that and make builds more frequently. So for scenes and prefabs, we have a prefab folder with all of the levels and the screens, enemies, players, pickups, all that stuff. It's not as organized as I would like, but every prefab is in the prefabs folder, so it's a start. Everything that's like in here that's a prefab is kind of attached to a singleton anyway, so it gets carried over. But if it's like the menu screens, they stay the same. And the enemies would be the most useful to have like in here as the prefabs. So we just got some more textures for it, so we can apply those soon onto the model, and it would just apply to every enemy, which is good. Something that I specifically did for prefabs would be in the UI again. When I made the level select in the shop menus, I made buttons for them. So each button is some prefab that has a time, grade, and a level index to show which level that you're on, as like an image on the side. So eventually we want the time and the grade to update when you finish a level. So yeah. And the shop, I added these like prefab shop buttons that take in like the item data and show your teeth when you collect them. When you click it, it adds it to the inventory, but it's not visible right now. But yeah, these buttons work. So you can go to level 1, level 2. It updates with like F and 1 second because I just exited right away, but it does update. Something I learned was when you build, you can actually make a development build, which is useful to see like errors that pop up, I guess. And there's like text files that you can go into in the users or the default company. That'll show you like the order of debug logs that happened and like what it was calling and all that stuff, which was useful. It was just a bit hard to read, so we ended up kind of mostly testing in the console in the editor, but when we had build-specific bugs, we would go into those files. And for tools, I think what I would want is like a bootloader. It's not specifically like a tool, but it's more like a system I want to have eventually. And something to make sure that all of the assignments for like input fields or whatever in a game object are not null. I think that would be like a good global kind of tool to have for every single game object, or something we could attach to a game object that ensures that like when it's loaded or on enable or whenever, when the game starts, all of its assignments are not null. And if they are, then just add that component or add that game object instance or whichever it needs. But yeah, I felt like I did a lot more work in the engine than I did with scripting, just mostly because it's UI stuff, UI screens and all that. But that was my contributions to that.